You are listening to InCites, produced by the UNSW Law Society, a podcast dedicated to bringing you an insight into law school, the legal profession, and legal issues. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast is recorded, and to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging.
This episode is sponsored by Herbert Freehills, a leading global law firm with 25 offices around the world and a vision to be a community of exceptional people committed to perform outstandingly in different roles. The firm has achieved Band 1 Chambers recognition in various practice, including international arbitration and corporate M&A. It was also ranked top 10 M&A legal advisor around the world in 2021. HSF also has a wide range of initiatives spanning pro bono legal services, community partnerships, sustainable business practices, and business and human rights. And on top of that, the firm's vacation clerkship program applications are currently open to students who are in their penultimate and final year of their law degrees. They close on the 9th of July. This is a great opportunity for students to spend part of their summer with HSF and gain a greater understanding of the legal practices.
For this episode, we have invited Rachel, a graduate recruitment consultant, and Ganesh, a graduate solicitor from the real estate group. We'll be discussing more about HSF, the clerkship process, and experience from Rachel and Ganesh, as well as some tips and advice for those applying for clerkship right now. A huge welcome and thank you to Rachel and Ganesh for joining us today.
Oh, yay!
So in our episodes, we always like to begin with asking our guests some introductory and icebreaker questions to get them thinking. So the first question is, do you prefer milk before cereal or cereal before milk?
Oh, I have strong feelings about this. I don't know about you.
What are your feelings?
I say milk before cereal.
Yes.
And cereal actually in a separate bowl. And so you'll always have crunchy cereal. You just scoop the cereal into the milk and then you eat it.
So you have two bowls when eating?
You're washing two bowls? Okay.
I've got a dishwasher.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say it depends. A very law answer. Mm-hmm. So if you're having something like Weet-Bix, milk before cereal, but anything else, it has to be cereal first, because then you can actually quantify how much cereal you're putting, and the milk fills in all the gaps, right?
That's
Otherwise,
true.
you've got milk.
But then
that.
wouldn't it be floating? And that's the whole point, because then you can,
But then you've just got like a layer of milk and then like cereal
All
just
the
sitting
And
at
it's
the top.
always crunchy.
Yeah.
And it'll be always crunchy.
So back when, not at HSF, but a different workplace where I used to have breakfast at work, and I always go to the kitchen, get a bowl of milk, and my cereal will be at my desk. So I'd like walk back to my desk with a bowl of milk. And I remember a colleague come up to me, and she's like, "What are you, a cat?" So,
That's
yeah.
funny.
I see.
Yeah. Next question?
Yeah. Second question. Would you rather go back to age 10 with everything you know now, or know now everything that your future self will learn?
I'm going to go with know now what everything my future self will learn, solely because while I would love to go back and fix all the many mistakes I made in the past, that would also entail me doing the HSC again, doing exams at university again.
Yeah.
And while I'll have all the knowledge I have now, I barely remember anything from maths, like trigonometry or anything of that sort. So the concept of relearning all of that and doing the HSCs and going back to university, I think I'd rather know what the future holds instead.
Yes. I don't know about you, Chelsea and Ganesh. I sometimes still have nightmares about the HSC. Like in my dream,
traumatic.
I'll be like, oh no, I don't remember anything from my English essay. Yeah. What about you, Rachel?
I think I'm the opposite. I would go back in time with the knowledge I know now, and I just, controversially, given my current sort of industry of employment, but I would disregard schooling and just get into Bitcoin like really early.
Bitcoin is the way to go.
Or invest in toilet papers when COVID was at its peak.
Like Apple stock when it was a lot cheaper.
Apple, Bitcoin, Airbnb,
That is a good
Uber.
point.
Yes, that
Yeah.
is so true.
You'll be
Same.
set for life.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
that is so true.
You don't even need to worry about school at that time. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
And
That is
because
so
I would
true.
know I would have already been through schooling because I retain my memories.
Right.
And I get youth. I gain extra years.
Oh, that's true. You gain
Yeah.
more experiences outside
Ooh.
of just schooling. Yeah.
Lucky hacking the system.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, thanks guys.
Yeah.
Just one
So we're
last-
done? Yeah.
Just wanted to know.
yeah. The last icebreaker is just to get to know you both on a more personal level. Can you tell us a bit more about your interests or hobbies? Anything you do on the weekend?
On the weekend,
Yeah.
I recently came back from a trip. So I do enjoy traveling, and I enjoy solo traveling a lot, and eating and binge watching Netflix. So
Oh, okay.
yes.
Let's see.
I'd say all of the above to what Rachel just said. But also, I do really like playing tennis. Used to play
Nice.
in university, lost touch a little bit when I started working, and got back into it towards the end of last year.
Did you go Australian Open this summer?
No, I've actually never been to the Australian Open.
Okay.
It's always been on my bucket list.
Oh.
At some point, I should make it down to Melbourne for the Australian
Yes.
Open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next year's
Yeah,
on your
next
butt.
year always, yeah.
You'll tick that off.
All right, let's move on to more of the serious questions, I would like to call it. Let's talk about HSF. So aside from our brief introduction, can you tell us a bit more about HSF or things that we might have not mentioned in it? Yeah.
Yeah, so as you mentioned before, we're a global commercial law firm. So we've got, on our backs 170 years of heritage, and we account for like 2,600 lawyers thereabouts internationally. When we say full service, we essentially advise commercial clients in all aspects of their business. So I guess in practical terms, how we organize ourselves internally, we advise on like sort of corporate legal advice, finance, dispute resolution, employment law, real estate, projects, energy and infrastructure, competition and regulation and trade. So really all aspects that could affect a commercial business we advise on. Ganesh, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd also add that HSF also does a lot of pro bono work as well. There's been a lot of opportunities to get involved, even at a very junior level as well, from as a clerk to a grad. Some of our major initiatives include helping out with the refugee advice and casework service. So there's been a lot of great focus on that as well.
Right.
Oh, perfect.
I guess just to add on, just out of my own curiosity, I think right now they have, especially after COVID, there's a lot of startups and, a lot of kind of legal kind of centers focused on human rights and just ESG problems. Has kind of HSF really tackled that kind of problem and especially with pro bono legal aids?
Yeah.
There's definitely been a lot of changes now with the asylum seeker processes, and we've started up new clinics. When the issues were first happening in Afghanistan, HSF helped out with emergencies legal services, with helping get humanitarian visas, offshore humanitarian visas for a lot of asylum seekers trying to flee Afghanistan. So there has been that sort of receptiveness to changing events, and now that that process is mostly completed, I believe they're now moving on to helping asylum seekers who have made it to Australia to help sponsor family members still overseas, including in places like Afghanistan. So even in terms of the pro bono aspect, there is a lot of responsiveness to changing circumstances around the world and in our own local area.
Oh, thank you. That was very insightful. It's very interesting to know that HSF really brings back to the community, especially as a global firm as well. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I guess this is a question more targeted towards Ganesh. You're currently working as a graduate solicitor in the real estate group. Can you tell us a bit more about your role? So what is like your typical day like in the morning?
I think to sound a little bit to not be too much of a stereotype, there is no typical day, especially as real estate is a very transactional practice. What my role involves from a day-to-day basis can change quite sharply based on the nature of the matters that we're working on and what stage those matters have progressed to. In terms of what my general roles include, in real estate, we deal with a lot of commercial leases, options to purchase land. So it involves a lot of contracts and negotiating contracts. So as a graduate, you'd often be reviewing those contracts, looking for issues, things that we should be pushing with the other side to amend, proposing amendments. There's a lot of opportunities to assist with drafting those documents as well. And I think what's great about the real estate team, at least here, is they do give you a lot of opportunities to have a first go at making those drafts, having first go at suggesting amendments to contracts. So there is a lot of ownership and initiative you can have from a very junior stage. And then once it's reviewed by a senior associate or partner, you then get to see this is what a person with more experience would have done. And as you grow as a solicitor, you can sort of develop more and more towards what they would have done in the first instance.
Right, okay. No, that sounds really good.
No 2 days are the same.
No 2 days are the same, yeah. I guess, like, bouncing off that, do you guys have mentoring programs or, like, to actual senior solicitors help you guys with work
Your
or review?
graduate program,
Yeah.
and, clerkship as well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I can take that on the graduate fund. When you're a graduate, in each of your rotations, you're assigned both a buddy and a coach. And your buddy's role is your day-to-day contact. If any time you have questions that you don't want to ask someone too senior or you're unsure of what you're doing, you can always turn to your buddy. You also have a very formal coach who tends to be a senior associate or an executive counsel who gives you professional growth, coaching terms of your professional growth and development. They're usually someone who assigns you work, and you generally get a chance to have a talk to them about what you hope to achieve throughout your rotation in that 6 months, and they can help tailor the work you receive to that sort of your goals. And you have check-ins throughout your rotation as to whether you're meeting those goals or whether you want different kinds of work or the variety of work you get. So there is a lot of opportunity to sort of tailor your experience through your relationships with your coach and your buddy.
Yeah. And probably like an abridged version of that is also afforded to clerks during the clerk program. You're also assigned a buddy and a coach and a supervising partner. And so you get, I guess the clerk program is a really great taster of what the grad rotation program would be like.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And aside from, just the professional side and the work that you do, what is that one thing that both of you really enjoyed at HSF so far?
Yeah, I think I really enjoy coming to work and being able to work with a great mix of people. I think, a lot of employers talk about like diversity and, diversity and inclusion just in general, but I really get a sense of that here at HSF. And for being like a top tier law firm with lots of years under their belt, like it's really great to see that the people that work here are reflective of the communities that we serve. So, and that a lot of emphasis is put on from recruitment that we want a great mix of people, but then also seeing them through as clerks, grads, essays, and then to partner. I think it's really special. Also, the aspect of us being an international firm, you really do feel it here in that, you get, and Ganesh would know this as well, to be working sort of on cross-border work, working with international clients. I know even in HR and the grad recruitment space, we work with our colleagues in London and in Asia from time to time. So yeah, it sometimes feels like the opportunities are endless in that it's really very much a culture of, if you have an idea or you want to, you have your own take on doing things, sort of that is supported. And definitely in the business services space. So yeah, it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, no. Listening to this right now really makes me want to work here.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I just had a question. So you guys said that you worked internationally. How are your experiences? Do you guys have to work in different time zones, like sat through Teams or Zoom? How was that experience?
The whole hour is just going to be
You go, I go.
So I get maybe a bit less relevant for like law students, but I guess in the grad sort of recruitment space and HR space, we have like quarterly like global HR calls where we get to hear from like different offices and what they're doing and how their solicitors are going. We work with our Asia offices across like Tokyo, Hong Kong, Singapore, for like New Colombo Plan scholars.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so we help sometimes with the recruitment process on that, or maybe in the previous year we hosted a Hong Kong vacation clerk who did like 4 weeks in the Sydney office, and then they did the rest of the summer in Hong Kong. So it's coordinating with like the consultants there. So yeah, it's been really fun. And yeah, we have this really great Japan-Australia corridor, whereas it's a alliance of like solicitors and partners that help work with Japanese clients, but usually it's when they have like deals happening in Australia or around the world. So yeah, that's been really exciting as well, and the team in the Tokyo office are awesome. So yeah, it's great.
What about you, Gano?
So I haven't had too much matter-related work across international borders. It's been mostly state-based borders, but I have had other grads in my cohort and in other cohorts who have worked across international borders, and there is the notion of being able to work across time zones. In my experience with working across jurisdictions, you do get to meet a lot of interesting people in that sense, and you get to do different matters. So I've done quite a bit of Queensland-based real estate work and Melbourne, Victoria-based real estate work as well, just piping in New South Wales. And you get to see the very different nature of how real estate transactions might work across states. While there is a lot of similarities, given real estate is a very state-based jurisdiction, there is still very much differences across jurisdictions as well.
And I think your question around time zones, so quite often us and our team will have calls with the London office, because that's where the other head office is. It's Sydney and London. So we very much try to make sure that it falls into like a reasonable time where it's like in their morning and our evening. But sometimes time zones can prove a bit challenging.
Was there a time where you
the
would
latest?
say you have to work really, call them at a really late time to just for a suitable time for people in London as well?
Yeah, when the time zones don't line up well, you might have like a later
6
a.m. Yeah.
But I think even in state-based calls, they kind of make that accommodation. So when we had training for real estate, we had people from all the offices joining in. So I think they scheduled hours around like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. So that would be 9 o'clock in Perth. So they wouldn't have to log in at, say, 6 a.m. for our 9 o'clock call. So there is that sort of accommodation made.
Yeah.
I guess in terms of our vacation clerkship program, for both of you, do you guys have any advice for those looking to apply, people that are in their penultimate years?
How do they set themselves up for success during the clerkship and graduate program?
Okay, so I guess specifically to their experience in the program, I always say to come really with the right attitude. Sometimes students, they go through so much through the application process, which is super rigorous. They've just finished their like second semester of the year or third semester, trimester of the year. And, they maybe feel a bit burnt out by the time that they start the clerkship. But I think it's a great opportunity for you to get a sense of what a future career would look like at the firm. It's really one big learning opportunity. So come with the right attitude, that you're ready to learn, that you're always volunteering to help out when you have extra capacity. Go along to all the client meetings, sit in on calls, join all the team meetings, because like any and every opportunity that you can learn is just going to make you it's going to set you up for
success.
A better experience as a grad when you come back.
Yeah.
So definitely come with the right attitude. Get involved with firm life. I think it's such a special time in that those 10 weeks. It's like the festive season. People are like really happy, and they're even more happy to see clerks running around. So it's like, just have fun as well. Get involved with different committees, the D&I committees, pro bono work. Like it's just really such a special time. And well, I'll let Ganesh share, because he actually went through the process. I guess advice.
It's interesting because I've now been on both sides of being a clerk and now being a grad buddy to a clerk as well, and it is quite interesting to see the differences of what that experience is like. I think the biggest thing I'd say is very similar to what Rachel said. Just come here, be really willing to try new things. before the clerks start, teams make a really conscious effort to try and have interesting work or work that they can give to clerks. There's no expectation that you know what you're doing or like you're going to be a proficient at everything you touch, right? I think the very expectation is that you're willing to try different stuff. You're willing to put your hand up to try different things. So I think that's probably the best attitude to have. Also, just to get to know people around the firm and build those sort of connections and get to have a feel of like whether you want or like get a sense of where you want your career to go, what different area, like there are very different areas in a commercial law firm that you can go into. So talking to different people, meeting different people is a great way as a clerk to sort of help decide what sort of career you want in the future, because clerkship is really at the very start or like the beginning of your career, right? There's a lot of different opportunities or pathways you can take, and I think it gives you a good opportunity to try and feel that out at a very early stage.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Networking is very important. And I'm assuming especially for law as well. Well, I know in our icebreaker you said you wouldn't go back in time, but if you could go back in time to when you were applying for clerkships, is there something or any tips you would tell your past self, especially during that kind of stressful period?
Yeah, I think something that I've noticed a lot of people do is try and talk to a lot of partners and senior associates and networking events. And my biggest tip is to talk to some of the junior lawyers, because a lot of people don't go up and talk to junior lawyers, whereas from junior lawyers, you get a good sense of what the firm is like. Most of the people you'll be interacting with as a clerk or as a grad will be those junior lawyers, and those junior lawyers will be most likely your buddies or your future coaches. So talking to them will give you a better sense of what a firm culture is like, the kind of people who join that sort of firm, and it'll give you a sense of, or an idea of, do I fit in with that sort of culture, that sort of environment? And I think that gave me a better sense of I want to join HSF than talking to any other partner did. So yeah, my biggest tip is talk to as many junior lawyers or other young people at the firm and get a sense of the firm culture, because while on paper a lot of firms sound really similar, at the end of the day, it's the people you're going to work with that will influence your view or perception of your experience at a firm.
Yeah. Well, don't be surprised if you keep getting a lot of messages from me when I'm applying for clerkships. Like, hey, are you free for a coffee?
A LinkedIn request
we
will
never
be
say no
sent.
to coffee here, so always down for coffee.
I love a coffee.
No, definitely.
Yeah. All right. I think in terms of the application process, we noticed that online application requires both a cover letter and a CV. So do you guys have any tips in writing those, or what the recruitment team specifically likes?
We do notice, with a lot of law firms, different law firms prefer a different style of writing or what they're looking for as well. Yeah.
Sure. I think if you just think that a cover letter is essentially your way of convincing the reader to piquing their interest in your application and inviting you in for an interview. I mean, obviously your whole written application is doing that, but the cover letter is a great way to showcase some of your personality, what your interests are in. I think probably top tips I like to share is it should at least cover 3 main points, which is why are you interested specifically in commercial law? What is it specific to the firm that is motivating you to apply? And then thirdly, what are the key attributes that you can bring across pulling from your previous work or non-work experience, or just special interests and hobbies? I think also PDF your cover letter, because all the different firms use different recruitment platforms, and it might come through as like symbols on the other end if it's a Word doc. So to avoid it from being corrupted, like just PDF everything. For us, keep it to 1 page. Yes, you can be a bit funky with your margins, but ideally keep it to 1 page. The recruiter is reading hundreds of applications, so you want to be succinct, punchy. We're not looking for, academic style writing. It's got to be reflective of you, obviously professional, but don't feel the need to write in a style that's not reflective of how you like to write or how you like to speak. Address it to the right firm. We have a small percentage each year of cover letters being addressed to the wrong firm, and that could be either a student maybe using a generic cover letter and they've tried to swap out the names of the firms and the recruiters, or they might be pressed for time and they accidentally upload the wrong cover letter. So just make sure that you're attaching the right cover letter and it's addressed to the right firm, because if we see something that's not even direct written to us or addressed to HSF, it's it's like a mark against you if you're
Yeah.
Well, in saying that, can you guys tell when, it's a very generic cover letter, like it's actually not specific for HSF?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Straight away.
Yeah.
Like it's usually because the cover letter, they're just purely talking about themselves. They haven't made any references to the firm, to like the type of work specific that resonates with them, and it doesn't show sort of like that they've done any research, background research, and it's very obvious when they're clearly very motivated to apply for us, because the reasons are specific and you can tell like, oh, they've spoken to people, or they've done research on cases that we've done, or it links like well with their own aspirations. So it's pretty obvious.
Well, in saying that, in law school, and I'm sure Ganesh realizes that too, you notice a lot of students around us are paralegals. So for the students who do not have a paralegal or legal related positions or experiences, would that in a way disadvantage them when applying for the programs?
I personally want to know this question.
Take the recruitment side?
Well, I'll just say my piece, which is no. There's no prerequisite into having prior legal experience, let alone like commercial law experience. And part of that is like accessibility. So not all law students have the ability to get a paralegal role. I know they're quite hard to get. And there's also a lot of value from people bringing on different experiences, non-legal work experience, unpaid work experience, because you'll be surprised, majority of like different types of positions have great transferable skills. I'm sure it's a buzzword that you hear all the time, which is like if you think retail or hospitality, you're dealing with customers all the time. At a law firm, you're dealing with clients. It's the people business. You're servicing other people, trying to understand what they want, and you being able to deliver that. There's so many different industries that provide that skill. Stuff like working in a team, like practicing great communication skills, attention to detail. So we like a good mix of people that don't have legal experience. Ganesh, did you have legal experience before coming in?
I had legal experience before coming here. If the question is whether that helped me so what we do at HSF is quite specialised. So the law, unless you've also paralegaled at a commercial law firm, in that specific team that you end up clerking or being a grad in, the odds of that knowledge experience directly transferring is unlikely. What I think it helped me in coming here was the professional skills of like office culture, on what to do in an office, or being proactive at work. Those kind of skills that you can sort of get anywhere that isn't just law related. Even as a grad, having gone through now into my third rotation, the sort of knowledge I learned in, say, finance is very different to what I would have used in disputes versus now in real estate. So I think the law changes quite differently depending on the team you're in. And I think the skills that you use consistently is sort of the professional skills, which realistically you can get from anywhere, right? Not just law. So I don't necessarily think you need a law experience before coming to HSF to be successful as a grad or as a clerk.
Well, yeah. Well, you mentioned with finance, so we can tell that you probably studied a commerce degree as well, alongside
majoring in finance.
Yes, majoring in finance. Yeah, so, you've studied a Bachelor of Commerce as well. Could you tell us a bit more about how your commerce degree may have helped you with your legal career, since it is a very popular combination, especially at UNSW?
Yes, I want to start off with a caveat that you don't need to have done a commerce degree to work in a commercial law firm. I don't think there was that sort of necessity aspect to it. But in terms of where it has helped, so I did a commerce degree with an accounting major, and I think that helped
Not
in...
finance.
Not finance.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to accidentally call you out there. So yeah, I did an accounting major, and in my first rotation, I was in the restructuring, turnaround and insolvency team. And a large part of the business development work we did was looking at businesses and their cash flow and how they're operating, and having a sort of accounting background and understanding of how cash flow or how income or balance sheet statements sort of worked helped sort of better apply those skills to understand how those companies were operating. So it wasn't necessarily you needed that knowledge to the job as a grad lawyer, but it did definitely help in those sort of instances in having a base foundation to then build on. But having said that, I do think at HSF or most firms, they don't have the expectation that you know everything as a graduate lawyer. You do have a lot of front-loaded training. So when I first started my first rotation as finance, we had about a month of very, I think each day in the first couple of weeks, and then at least once or twice a week of training on like very specific concepts and content that you'll be working in as a finance lawyer, especially because finance is such a specialized area of law. It's sort of covered at A to Z, sort of any sort of things that might pop up in your sort of rotation that you can always turn back to because they're recorded. So there is a lot of that sort of training and building up to have those skills that you need to have. So yeah, I think that's a roundabout way of saying it did help, but it was not necessary.
Right, yes, definitely. Well, on the topic of university and just a lot of university related questions, what is something that you have learned as a graduate solicitor now that you didn't know about at university? Not just law, but just in general, perhaps?
I think the big, not necessarily a shock, but the biggest realization you have is how different university law is to the law you do on a day-to-day basis as a solicitor at a place like HSF. The sort of things you'll be doing, the work you'll be doing is quite different to what you might have done at university. Depending on the team you're in, the law you work with is also quite different. Some teams are very specialized in a very one chapter of the Corporations Act, for example. So you do quite specialized work, and a lot of your work is focused on being a very commercial focused or client focused. So I think one of the biggest skills or things you've had to, like I've learned or come to appreciate, is it's not just about getting the content right. Say if you're drafting advice from a client, but also what clients really care about is that one word answer of, can we do what we wanted to?
Right.
Or can we not do what we wanted to? Or how do we go about doing something, right? So all they care about is that one sentence and making sure that's really clear and at the get-go, and then you provide your reasoning for why you came to that answer. So having that sort of client at the front of mind or focus of what you do is constantly built into everything you do as a solicitor or graduate solicitor here. And that's the sort of big difference in perspective that I think I've realized since being in university to working here.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely very different from what you can learn at university, especially in law.
Yeah. Everyday readings.
Yeah, no,
Just law readings.
Yeah, you definitely don't look into whether the clients will actually, can we do this? Like,
Yeah. It's more about what your lecturer
Yeah, exactly. Does my lecturer like? Does my
they-
lecturer give me high marks?
Or showing that you've done a lot of research
Yeah,
or work, as opposed
yeah.
to clients really don't care about. They just
Yeah.
want the answer to their
Yeah.
question at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, thank you. That was very insightful. I guess more onto our students. So a lot of our audiences are non-penultimate students. Is there anything that they can participate in terms of programs, like dive-in programs or anything at HSF?
Yeah, so at HSF we run pre-penultimate workshops. So they generally take place in October, November each year. And yeah, basically when applications open, students can apply. They'll come in for like half a day to the HSF office. They'll meet with sort of our grads and solicitors, SAs and partners. There'll be sort of a session with legal ops, an overview of the firm. There'll be general networking, and then a sneaky office tour. I'm sure we love sneaking in office tours. And we feed you as well, so that's important. There's also virtual internships on Forage, so we have virtual internships.
I've done one of those.
Yeah. I think for digital law, for finance, I think for dispute resolution. So yeah, and we're building on that repertoire. So it's really, a good experience for students to get involved with. And then a question I get a lot is for paralegal work. So how it works here is because there is like a gap between when you finish the clerk program to when you start as a grad, we try to offer our clerks paralegal roles if availability lines up. And if on top of that we have an additional need for paralegal resources, we'll then go to market and recruit. Right. So for students, just keep an eye out for our careers page, which recently had a revamp. So definitely check it out. I'm sure you can, if this is a video, like link somewhere. So yes,
Right.
these are some things.
Were you going to say something,
No, I just wanted to do a shout out to our kitchen and client services. The food is genuinely very good. So if for no other reason, I would highly recommend coming to our events.
We'll sneak into your offices just for free food.
Yes.
Yeah. No, well, in saying that, Chelsea, do you want to sign up for the October pre-ultimate?
You bet I will. I'll be the first one. I'll be the first one there. And I guess the last question to both of you. Do you have any advice to give to law students or aspiring law students? Yeah.
Advice.
Any
I feel like we
advice?
gave a lot of advice. Advice. I think while you're at uni, really enjoy this time. I know it doesn't feel like that when it's like StuVac week or exam period, but it's really such a special time for you to explore and try different subjects and different electives and really get the world is your oyster at this stage. I think don't put too much pressure on, I've studied for this long and my HEC stat is racking up and I need to get a job ASAP. Like, I think really enjoy this time to explore and enjoy being young, and sort of it's not the be all and like clerkships are not the be all and end all. There are so many other pathways to get into either the legal industry or whatever your second degree is that you'd like to pursue. I think like you're going to be working for years and years and years. What is the retirement age? Like 68?
Don't want to think about that.
Like there is literally like no rush. Like, yes, cost of living is going up. I keep like caveating because I was like, yeah, like times are tough, but also enjoy being young. And, everything is a learning experience. So say you put yourself through the clerkship process and it is rigorous and it's like 3 months long or whatever. And if you weren't successful at the end of that, it's fine. Like it's all great skills that you're building on, interview skills, written application skills, and that's just going to make you better for the next time that you apply for another role. I know some law firms, they hire grads like direct from market, and I think that takes place in March. So yeah, I'd say that is my advice. I'm not going to give you any recruitment advice because just check out our website. But
Can't be lazy like that.
But yeah, that's what I would say. Ganesh?
I pretty much say all of what you've said. I remember when I was in towards the end of my degree, being really excited to finish my degree. And now that I've started work, I'd love to go back to the final year of my university degree. So I would very much echo that in saying enjoy your uni experience. It's one of the best periods of times you will have. And don't stress too much about it. I know you probably won't take this in if you're in your clerkship period doing the applications, but I wouldn't stress too much about it because I know so many people in my university cohort who've gone on to do really interesting things with their law degree that wasn't necessarily a clerkship or commercial law based job. So there are a lot of different opportunities with a law degree that isn't necessarily commercial law. And even if commercial law is what you want to do, there are a lot of pathways into HSF. A lot of solicitors in the team haven't gone through the clerkship or graduate process. They've been lateral hires through different firms. So there is a lot of opportunities to join a place like HSF, even if you don't do a clerkship program. So don't stress, it isn't the be all and end all. If you can get it, it's a great experience. If you don't get it, it's still not the end of your career. There's a lot of opportunities to join HSF, or there's a lot of other great opportunities out there as well that isn't commercial law if commercial law is not your interest area scope. So enjoy your university experience and don't stress too much about clerkships.
Go easy on yourself.
That's a bit hard to do.
Tell me that next year.
I mean, I didn't say there was no amount of hypocrisy in it because I'm sure I stressed out about it too. But with the benefit of hindsight, it isn't as big of a deal as it seems in that moment. Just as HSC doesn't seem as big of a deal once you start university. In the same sense, clerkship isn't as be all and end all once you sort of get through that process.
I think it's also a very rewarding experience after what you've gone through. You reflect on things that you've either done well and just learn and go.
I always have this favorite kind of word. It's like growth mindset. You just have that kind of growth mindset of you gain that from that as well. Just a quick question as well. Has there been a time where, there has been graduates or solicitors who weren't successful in their clerkship program in their first year and were able to come back or be in HSF the second year? Or
yes, we have. We had actually one of one of the clerks that finished the summer that just passed, we went out to campus together just this past recruitment season, and we got to talking, and then I remember meeting her at the same campus as a prospective candidate 2 years prior. And she was unsuccessful that year, applied the second year, was able to build upon her resume, and sort of the feedback we provided she took on, and she was made successful the second year. And she's not the only one. So I think, yeah, definitely don't despair if you were unsuccessful in your penultimate. You can apply again in your final year. And it's not a mark against you because you were unsuccessful before. If anything, we're even more keen on your application that you were willing to apply again, and we will review, I guess, how you improved upon your application in the year.
Learning from their feedback. Right.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, Chelsea,
No. Do you have any further questions?
No, I don't.
All right, thank you guys. That was very insightful. So thank you again for your time today, and hearing your perspectives and stories has been immensely rewarding and helpful for us. And we're grateful to be able to gain a better understanding of HSF and the Clerkship graduate program.
Yeah, so thank you for listening to InCites by UNSW Law Society. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any fun or interesting further episodes.
Great. And also subscribe to the HSF Grad Australia Instagram page, which we're pushing really hard. Lots of great content and perhaps some behind the scenes snaps from this episode as well.
Maybe some tips as well that you won't be able to get.
Oh, lots of tips. All the tips. All the tips.